So, friends, here's our big discussion with John Dougan about censorship. Because, John, you've been writing about censorship a lot recently. Very interesting. You seem very angry about it. But the question is, why does it, first off, let's get to the philosophical side. Why does it bother you so much? And why are you also writing about that from Russia? American censorship, but you're here.
Yeah.
Why?
So, originally, I used to be a police officer, and I started a website called pbsotalk.com, and the entire purpose of pbsotalk.com was to give voice anonymously to good police officers so they couldn't be targeted by their administrations. And, I mean, it exposed a lot of criminal wrongdoing in these police departments.
Well, what you're talking about, yes, from the inside, basically would allow the policemen themselves to anonymously post bad happenings, within the department.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Because, as a police officer, one of the big things that a police officer is worried about is crossing that thin blue line. And once you do that, you're an outcast and you're targeted by your department. And this is something that should be that the left, people on the left, usually they want to champion people coming forward, people having a voice. Yeah. And so, I am angry about what's going on right now.
So what you mean is you think that a lot of times the left would be more supportive of stuff like that. But
yeah, absolutely. Traditionally, the left have always been the champions of freedom of speech. You look at the ERA marches of the 70s and the civil rights marches. These were all primarily liberal causes. They were always the champions. The protests against the Vietnam War, and it's bizarre because we see this complete flip-flop because having a voice doesn't meet with their agenda anymore.
Oh, so that's the interesting thing. So that means that generally, and I think that's not just with them, but usually when some sort of ideology, when they're on the losing end, we cry for freedom of speech. But then when we have the power, everything's always a little bit different. So what would you describe yourself as then? Are you like a centrist or are you right-wing? What is your own beliefs, if you could define them?
I don't have a definition. Some things I'm very liberal, some things I'm very conservative. I guess if I had to pick one, I would say generally speaking, I'm more conservative. But it all depends on the cause.
Now, jumping back, you said about the things going on right now. That was sort of an implication about the censorship that's happening now. You're probably referring to things like 2 years ago when Alex Jones got deplatformed, and now the president of the United States has sort of gotten deplatformed. Was that what you're referring to as being like the new big censorship that you're angry about?
Absolutely, yeah.
So what is it? What is the censorship? Could you define it?
It's really hard to actually define what it is because it's so dynamic right now. But I can say this: if you have a voice and the voice goes against what the technology companies don't like, and the technology companies are usually they're run by very liberal people, and if you don't have a voice that is in agreement with theirs, you run a very significant risk of being deplatformed. But then the argument to that is, but it's a free market. They're private corporations. Doesn't Facebook as a company have the right to do what it wants? If you stand for freedom of speech, that's the whole thing with that the gay wedding cake issue. Is that shouldn't businesses be free to deny making a cake they don't like? I agree with you there as far as that goes. And I actually used that wedding cake as a point to my conservative friends. Look, this is, you guys push for this. But the problem is there's a bunch of places to buy a cake. Okay, you don't like this place, you go to another place. Where when you have like Facebook and Twitter, they all have they have a monopoly on speech now. And not only do they have a monopoly on speech, but as a whole, it's all a liberal monopoly. So we had a couple of places that tried to engage in the free market, like Parler, for example, right? Yeah. And I honestly, I registered for it. I don't like the platform, and but they tried. They tried to give conservatives a voice, and look what happened. The liberally dominated technology companies crushed them.
Apple gave them the boot.
Apple gave them the boot, Amazon gave them the boot, and Google gave them the boot.
Well, then maybe this ties into why you happen to be in Russia right now, because the president of the United States, former president of the United States, Donald Trump, on the Russian platform Telegram, he hasn't been banned.
He hasn't been banned, but look what they're doing. Did you hear?
No. Will you tell me?
They are looking. It was either Apple or Google or one of them said that they are removing Telegram.
Of course.
But they were fine when Telegram was being used by dissidents here in Russia to conspire against the government or to plan protests in Russia against what they claimed was Russian oppression.
Well, I think that might have been before Facebook bought WhatsApp.
No.
Because WhatsApp, it was even after that.
Yeah, it was after that. Yeah,
really?
Yeah, long after that. Yeah,
Okay.
This was just, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, because in a lot of ways, before they could really rely on WhatsApp, because now if they get rid of Telegram, these activists still have WhatsApp. WhatsApp is probably the number one messenger in Russia, Telegram being number two. But Telegram, ironically, in a lot of ways now is going to become sort of this home for conservatives, this alternative platform, when its initial audience in Russia were the most super ultra liberal Russian people, because it was sort of cool and trendy.
Yeah.
And but even that got in kind of an early fight with the government, where it's in this weird status of being, it was semi-banned. I don't know. Yeah, could you be? Yeah, are you familiar with that?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously they can't ban it totally, but they tried blocking it. I forgot what they call the internet. The person that controls the internet here. They did their best to block it, and
didn't work.
But no, it didn't work. I mean,
for 3 days it did, or something like that.
But not if you have a VPN.
No. Yeah, well, even now, what I mean is the attempts to do it didn't last for long, because I remember that period. It was on the phone, and then it became really slow and hard to use, and then they just sort of plowed through it. But that's one of the sort of interesting conspiratorial things, because if they really wanted to say completely shut it down, well, they know who the founder is.
Sure.
They know where his office is. And he's still out there. So it's kind of this weird intergovernmental sort of thing. But about this, so now that you're here in Russia, speaking of censorship, I would be someone that would say that censorship has sort of always existed. It's always been out there, and I think it's always going to be out there. So how do you feel about being in Russia in terms of censorship? Do you feel some sort of freedom here, or are you just trying to get away from problems you're having in America?
Well, so I mean, I'm wanted by Interpol. I don't know if you know.
No, we didn't get into that yet. Yes.
Yeah. So
for
19 recordings of dirty police officers admitting to engaging in crime.
Well, why is that a crime to release or expose?
Because in my state, in the state of Florida, you're not allowed to record somebody else without their consent, even if they're admitting.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, there was just a big case recently where this, I think she was 10 or 12-year-old girl. She was being raped by her stepfather, and she recorded it, and they would not allow the recording of this crime in court. Because it's illegal. Now, this is a law written by politicians and people who have an interest in not being recorded. So, so I could actually face 95 years in prison if I return home.
Well, wouldn't on the other side, you say people who don't want to be recorded, but if you are someone who has this very typical American traditional view of privacy is important and censorship is bad and all that, well, isn't that very good for the privacy of the average person, that they shouldn't have to fear being recorded?
I think, but I mean, if you're in the middle of engaging in a crime, and in my case, I mean, they were actually plotting to have me killed. So, this was something that I needed to get on audio tape, and I need to expose this stuff. It was the only way to protect myself. Although now I'm exiled from America and I'm in Russia, but I'm still alive. So
well, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
So, but about censorship. Was there ever in America, you think, maybe a golden period where we got it right? Because very often there's always these headlines and stuff where they say, well, this law is going to, it's going to take our rights or take our freedom and this, that, and the other. And then the question is, were we ever really that free? Because even as children, so I think we're about the same age somewhere, back when there was just, freedom free TV and cable TV before the internet. You still couldn't say the F word on television. You could not show someone's rear end on television. And what if, per se, I mean, isn't the F word or perhaps our derriere part of our ability to have free speech? I mean, well, could there ever really be truly a censorship-free environment?
No. You know, and I kind of understand why on these federally regulated television channels, why you can't say like really awful stuff or show really awful stuff. I mean, you got kids watching, and you know, there has to be, I guess, kind of a balance when you're broadcasting. But that doesn't mean that the people can't just say it themselves. And I think probably the 80s might have been the golden age of freedom in terms of like the early 80s, in terms of what you could do. But, you know, they've been piling on the laws. People in America don't believe me when I say, you know what, you should Google the Russian criminal code. There's 165 pages of laws that you have to follow in Russia. There's 30,000 pages of law, of criminal code in the United States that you have to follow. 30,000. Everything you can think of almost in America is illegal. I don't know if you know this or not.
Well, and it's also very often there's a lot of contradictions. So even if you have to either do A or do B, both A and B could be illegal in certain instances.
Sure.
So you're really just set up to fail, depending on who interprets the law, however.
Yeah, and it's really one of those things where, you know, they say the average person in America commits 3 felonies every single day. Okay?
Which ones?
Just Google the book. There's a book.
There's a whole book. I see. Okay.
For instance, calling in sick to work. Did you know you could actually have 5 years in prison for that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called honest services fraud. And if you call in sick to work and you go, for instance, to a nightclub or a baseball game, you've committed honest services fraud. And if they don't like you, they can put you in prison for it. And it happened with a guy. There's an actual case about this. It wasn't calling in sick to work. He used his work computer to check like the scores on his fantasy football league. And he was in bad with the government. And I don't remember why they started investigating him. But they tried to put him in jail for 5 years for that, for exceeding unauthorized access. That is a law. That's a federal law.
Wow.
Yeah. So
maybe here what we're looking at, the problem with a lot of this is, first off, too much law. There's too much.
Absolutely.
And too much strength on the side of interpretation of the law. So would the solution be to sort of like squeeze this down, or what? The
solution is just to start new, just, you know, get...
Well, that's a very unlikely scenario.
You're right. But it's the only solution. I mean, because you're not ever going to get rid of all these crazy
Well, you
laws.
want to know a place where reality was restarted was Russia in the 1990s. And one of the problems is in a lot of ways the new laws after the new Constitution of Mysterious Origins appeared in Russia, it was still based on the law from the Soviet Union that came before it. So that's one sort of weird thing where you have this strange balance between old and new. I would say probably the number one thing that really shows that weirdness is how, have you ever had to probably register at your apartment or all that? Where you're living.
Yes.
And that is the perfect example, because in the Soviet Union, you'd have to register with the police, especially as a foreigner, for where you live. But the paradox is now that because you now have the constitutional freedom of movement, so you're registered a place to live, but there's no way for the police to really define how many days a year you have to be there in order to being considered to live there, because that would restrict your freedom of movement.
Yeah.
And it's actually in a lot of ways now with protests and that what really can get a protester are those registration laws, because generally no one looks into it. But if they kind of know where you came from and they know you have a fictitious registration, that can be a lot of money. I think it's some absurd amount of money, like 500,000 rubles, which is a lot of money here. So that's sort of the other side of that. But I was just saying that the experience that Russians had to go through in order to reset everything was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And it led to the death of, there's an estimated that 11 million people died during the Yeltsin period because of those changes. It's kind of hard to exactly say because you can't really have a cause of death being societal change.
Sure.
But still. So, again, anyways, cut that part out. I lost my train of thought.
You know, I'm actually caught in a paradox here.
Yeah, why?
I have political asylum. It gives me the right to work, but I can't get a tax ID number, so I can't pay taxes.
Oh.
And I've met with people from the tax office here. They're like, well, the law just, it's not broad enough to apply to you.
Would you be able to do the whole process of immigration where you would get like a temporary residency, permanent residency, citizenship?
I'm going to be doing that soon, yeah.
Well, that's kind of your only way out.
Yeah. But if I do that, I lose my political asylum.
Yeah.
You can't have one or you can't have both. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, then could they make a call through Interpol to grab you then? Does Russia participate in that system?
So, yeah, I actually got arrested by Interpol here on accident.
Okay.
I went to Nizhny Novgorod.
Yeah.
And my document was being renewed, so I had my passport.
Yeah.
And I checked into this hotel with my passport. Now, when you check into a hotel here, they send every registration to the police, and the police check you through Interpol.
Yeah.
And they checked me through Interpol. I came out the next morning, and
there they were.
I had 3 cops, plainclothes cops. They said, John Mark Dougan. I was like, yeah. Like, please come with us. They stick me in the back of a 4-door Lada.
Yeah.
And drive me to the police station. And I was like, what's this about? And they're like, you have a warrant for your arrest. You're wanted by Interpol.
Yeah.
I was like, I have political asylum here. And I gave them a copy of my asylum document. And they were very confused because they'd never seen it before. And it took 4 hours for them to verify that I was non-extraditable. And they let me go. So yeah, they definitely participate here.
I see.
Yeah.
So that means that you might actually not be able to get a residency permit because if you're here on the permit and you lose that special status, couldn't they then arrest you?
They could, yeah.
Wow. That's a real tough position to be in. I do not envy you.
Yeah, it's very tough. But I'm going to be applying for citizenship soon. So
yeah. But then the nice part is in Russia, generally, I've found out that I think the limit is about 600,000 rubles. Basically, if you transfer any amount of money smaller than that, which is about half a car in terms of, international standards, the value of half a car, they don't really check. That's what I found out.
As far as what?
When you do money transfers. So essentially working illegally in Russia, as long as you're I'll put it this way, as long as you're here legally, working illegally is actually very easy because you can just transfer money without anyone really paying attention. Yeah. So, yeah. But anyways, let's get back to this then, the censorship. So we've sort of established here, what have we established? That there's never been a golden age, and if it was maybe somewhat sort of in the 80s. We've got too much law, too much control of what we're doing. But we haven't really talked about the mechanisms of censorship. So when we embraced the internet, right, everyone thought this is the era of freedom. This is going to be great. And I was a little bit more skeptical. I even knew that eventually this is new, but they'll catch up to it. The big companies, they'll catch up to it and clamp down on it. So what are these mechanisms of censorship that are clamping down now? So
you have, it's a very multi-tiered way that they can clamp down on you. So they can clamp down on the highest level, which is like social media sites. So, for instance, what they did with Donald Trump. Then you have like the mid-tier. They could deplatform you, right? And when they deplatform you, they remove your services. And actually, there's a radio talk show host in America who was deplatformed. She called me up and she said, my website has just disappeared. GoDaddy wrote that they just got rid of my website.
That's it.
Yeah. So now her website is being hosted here in the Russian Federation.
Oh, of course. Because Time Web doesn't care.
Yeah. So, but then you have the lowest, like the most devious level is they can steal your domain name, which that happened to me.
Interesting.
Yep. So I used to have pbsotalk.com.
So even if you have a domain name that you paid, it's registered to you for the X amount of time, they can just take it.
Absolutely.
And that's not some sort of involved with like a warrant or a criminal case, just whatever.
They can take it. They can say, you know what, you've violated our terms and services.
Wow.
They take your domain name. They can, and while we're talking about terms and services, so, Parler, they were stupid. They were hosted on Amazon. They should have known better.
Yeah.
Gab was a little smarter. They started buying their own servers, from what I hear, although it's an awful service. But the one problem that they're going to face now that I see, it hasn't happened yet, but I see this coming, is their internet service provider. So they have to host through somebody. Somebody has to give bandwidth to their servers.
Yeah.
So maybe it's Comcast, maybe it's AT&T. And these woke companies now,
they're just going to say, no,
they're going to say, you know what? Your content that's being distributed through us is a violation of our terms and service.
Now, if they were to work on servers in Russia or who knows where, Iran, China, doesn't matter, would that get around that problem, or could Comcast still sort of block it from within America?
No. So that will get around the problem. In fact, I have two services now. I have 1776.chat. Which is like an older style message board system where you can send encrypted messages or do forums. It's kind of like a mix between Twitter and Telegram. And I also have speech.chat, which is more of a Facebook style. There are servers hosted in Russia. My domain names are bought in Russia through a Russian company. Okay, so it would be very hard, almost impossible to deplatform them. And as far as banning them from I don't see that happening. No. I mean, it could. I guess it could.
Here's the thing, though. When we were babies, this country was very different. This country had one news source, often very few channels, and it was completely and totally lockstep. And now we're sort of sitting in the weird land of freedom. How do you think that possibly happened? And why do you think that in Russia you're allowed, the sort of royal are allowed to be conservative as you want? Why can 1776 be allowed here, but not in America anymore?
Well, that's a good question. And I had a very interesting conversation with a politician here once. Who actually used to work for Boris Yeltsin, and he's and he said something really profound. This was like 6 years ago, and it's so true today. But he said, I see Russia is going to where America was in the 80s, and America going to where Russia was in the 80s. And I was like, well, maybe we'll see. And darn if he didn't predict that correctly. But, after the Soviet Union collapsed, I think people were so kind of fed up with censorship and stuff and their rights being violated, they won't tolerate it anymore. So I think you have a lot of liberties here in Russia.
And also, I think it's been sort of proven that this sort of total censorship, it really didn't work, because the Brezhnev period was known as stagnant period, of complete stagnation. That's really what defines the entire period. And because of the censorship, there was no way to really change things. Everything was just sort of stuck in the same sort of early 1960s rhetoric. And it just made people annoyed and frustrated and boxed in. So I think in Russia there is censorship, but it's a lot more light. And I think it allows people to sort of blow off steam, maybe push society here or there. I will put it this way. There's a lot more ideological change and development over the last 15 years that I've been here than there were during the Brezhnev period.
I bet.
I mean, you could turn on the TV in, I think, 1970 and turn it on in 1979 and not one thing changed.
Yeah. But I have something. It's an interesting point. But I will tell you this. So you have the Americans saying, you can't protest in Russia, you get arrested, blah, blah, blah. It's not true. I was in Khabarovsk.
Yeah.
In
Khabarovsk. But anyway.
Thank you. I was there.
It's okay. Yeah.
That's a very hard word for me to pronounce.
It takes time.
I was there in July. And do you remember what was happening there in July?
Oh, well, yeah, because they arrested the governor or mayor.
The mayor.
Mayor, excuse me. And and there was a sort of public outcry that may have actually been not as big of a part of the public as they made it seem.
Yeah. So, anyways, I was there during these protests.
Okay.
And I took my camera.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to check it out.
Yeah.
And I went and I kind of walked with these protesters, talked to some of them, saw what was happening with the police, and I was shocked. And I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
The police were there passing out masks and bottles of water.
Oh, interesting.
People were complaining. People were like, "Oh, Putin this, Putin that, and this new mayor, whatever." You know what disgruntled people say.
Yeah. Everything's bad. Well, especially Russians. When something's bad, everything's bad. Yeah.
So it was very interesting for me to actually watch this happening, and and I've seen the protests here too. Yeah. And it seems like, they do arrest people, but the only time they're getting arrested is when they're protesting in places where they don't have the permits, when they're trying to block businesses, trying to block roads.
But one thing is then, isn't it sort of against the idea if you have this freedom of speech, the freedom to express yourself and the freedom of association as in to congregate together, how can the government tell you that you can only protest inside of this box? Because that policy's in Europe and America too, right? Are you really free if you can only protest in this area on this day from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m.?
Well, that's a good point. But the problem with protests, especially in America, is the reason they have these rules is because you're infringing on other people's liberties. Look at how many people. I remember seeing this. It was really a shocking video. There was a black guy, and he was at the front of a line. These Black Lives Matter protesters blocking the road. He's like, "Please, I've got to go to work. I'm going to get fired. I got babies at home. I got to feed."
Yeah.
And they would not let him pass. I mean, where is his right to go to work and provide for his family?
Yeah.
So everything is a compromise. Okay, you have freedom of speech, but you don't have the freedom to impede on somebody else's freedom to go about their business, go about their day, go about their lives.
Yeah. Now, at those protests, were they really massive? Did you really feel like this was a public outrage, or did it feel more like a liberal clique decided to take a picnic?
It didn't seem like it was that big. I mean, there were probably 100 people there when I was there. So I guess it wasn't like super small, but it wasn't anything significant like what the media. Like I was watching the Western media, it wasn't anything what they were making it out to be.
Because I always get, whenever there's some sort of protest, I always get messages like, "Aren't you scared? Aren't you afraid for your life?" Because I don't live downtown. It's expensive. When you're kind of not downtown, you don't see or feel anything.
Yeah.
Everything was yesterday as it is today, as it probably will be tomorrow. There is no political unrest. That's something for the Capitol, basically.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's always this sort of weird thing where everything that usually doesn't matter in Russia gets very overinflated, and maybe if something does, it gets very deflated.
Yeah.
Because if there's anything that was really, I would say, critical to Russians that really got people fired up publicly was the whole Maidan, the revolution in Ukraine that caused a lot of Russians to get killed and a lot of Russians to be very repressed right now. That was definitely something that actually got people fired up. But that is not our topic for today. That's just sort of my pet peeve. I guess I've lived here long enough to get the same ones. Now, one thing about Russians, though, we're sort of describing Russian society as having a lot of freedom here, that a lot of people are sick of the way things were during communism. But I can tell you one thing for sure. The average Russian does not care about privacy. That's a big difference between Americans and Russians. I have some theories as to why in my own head, but do you agree with that? And if so, how then is in Russia we have a decent amount of freedom of speech and all that when people don't particularly seem concerned with it?
I don't know. I mean, I think I think they do care about privacy in some respects here. So I'm not sure exactly. Like everybody I know likes their privacy.
Oh, you think?
I think. I mean,
it's just with me that usually when people sort of list what their sort of concerns are, Russians generally seem more focused on house, car, nice vacation, a little bit more than the material side.
Oh, absolutely.
Rather than usually anything to do with that. Even, yeah.
Okay. So I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Privacy is a big concern, but they just don't focus on it.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Sorry, I tried to cut you off. I have a really good example. Okay, before Telegram existed, I was part of a startup company, and what they wanted to do was essentially make something like Telegram. The problem was none of us were the geniuses needed to sort of see it and work it out. But one thing I knew is they wanted to do this thing from Russia, but really push it in America. I told them, it's gotta be privacy. That's the thing that's going to be hot. If we make a messaging service where no one can get your messages, where everything's, encoded, it's going to be great. And they all just looked at me like, why? Who cares? That's so stupid. But later, a Russian person did make Telegram that offered this sort of total privacy. So I think that has to even go back to my experiences where everyone around me at the big office table was just baffled. Why would that matter? And Russians tend to be very pessimistic. So, when you talk about privacy, it's just like, they listen to everything you do anyways.
Yeah,
what I mean?
I get it. Yeah, and I see what you're saying. So, but apparently privacy did wind up being a big deal for them, which is why Telegram is such a success.
Yeah.
So, but I think you're absolutely right. They are more focused on day-to-day life. They want their vacation days. Which they have a lot of them here. That's
nice.
Yeah. They want all the perks that come with living in Russia.
No, here's a hard question. One that I often have trouble answering myself. You and I, guys at the bottom who don't have a lot of money, we're not billionaires. What are we going to do about this? Like, there's censorship, right? I mean, you've created some means to get around censorship and create small platforms to people to communicate on. That's awesome. But besides that, what are we going to do? Because Facebook's not going to go anywhere. I mean, the average person is not going to make some sort of moral stand to get off Facebook or get off Instagram or whatever, because they're used to it and it's big and it's comfortable. And if you're a company, do you want to go on big flat platforms or do you want to go on experimental platforms? Of course you don't.
Agree. No, I agree with you. And I mean, I had said something about this kind of well, maybe I shouldn't say it here, but I mean, there's only one thing that's gonna fix that, and that's people going to the Facebook offices and storming the offices. I mean, when people have had it, look, the people at the election, they were pissed off. They stormed Congress. What a stupid thing to do, because it wasn't Congress that caused Trump to lose the election.
Well, that was because they wanted to sort of blockade the moment when they would finally put sort of the seal on the deal to make Biden the president.
That was
sort of the logic behind it.
You know what? If the people were really outraged and they really wanted to direct it at the right place, they would go and they would protest.
Well, my friend, unfortunately, human beings are not very rational. You know what I mean? Because generally, even the one thing, Russian people always ask me about, with the Ferguson protest and the Black Lives Matter protest, because I'm basically from what someone considered the ghetto, right? Yeah. Is there? But why do you burn your own neighborhood? Why at these but the thing is people aren't rational. People don't just think, I'm angry, let me go try to find the address of these certain billionaires that control these certain companies that are making my life miserable. Or for example, right, so I'm from Cleveland. How exactly could I really break down who were the specific people that screwed us over and sent all of our jobs to China and Mexico that turned Cleveland into the racist hellhole that it kind of is today? Those are the people who are responsible for it, but aren't there probably a lot of them? Maybe Congress is partially at fault. Bill Clinton is with his NAFTA. NAFTA was rough for Cleveland.
NAFTA was rough,
but does that give me the right to kill Bill Clinton? I probably not legal sense. No.
But you got to remember, look, Congress, the presidents, the Senate, they are controlled by one thing, and that's the companies, because the companies have the money to lobby. They have all this money to pour into campaigns. They are the kingmakers.
Yeah.
They are the ones that are controlling the United States. So, I think going after the politicians is stupid. If they want to be effective, they're going to have to go after the heads of these companies. And when I say go after, I don't mean like go kill them. I just mean, picket them, protest. Doing it to a congressman. I mean, that's just stupid, because they're going to pass the law, but they're going to pass the law that basically they were paid to pass.
Well, yeah, that was like, for example, the ultimate maybe act of stupidity as a good negative example was, remember the Oklahoma City bombing?
Yeah, sure.
When he really thought, when he blew up that Oklahoma state level government building, that would change America. How? Yeah. But unfortunately, people are not so rational as we'd like them to be.
Well, but he's right. It did change America, because they started putting these anti-domestic terrorist laws.
Well, it was actually the opposite effect. Rather than him thinking it's going to start this sort of new revolutionary moment of freedom, it just told the feds, let's clamp down more.
Yeah.
So anyways, let's get then to the maybe the final big question is, what is your prognosis of the next few years, maybe 3, 4, 5 years? Where is censorship going to be heading?
Dark. My prognosis is dark. Look, the companies, they found out that they could get away with it under a conservative president. Now they know that they can certainly get away with it under a Democratic liberal president. It's going to be dark over the next 4 years. And it's going to be to the point, I don't think we will ever have another conservative president, because the ones that control the information are the ones, they are the kingmakers. I mean, I think they said that like 70% of the people who voted for Joe Biden never heard of the Hunter Biden laptop scandal. They didn't hear about it.
Oh, well, yeah.
Why? Because these liberal media outlets and these liberal companies like Facebook and Twitter, they flat out refused to report on it. They refused anybody to share links, claiming that, like, it was Twitter's claim was, well, we don't allow hacked materials to be published. When it wasn't hacked, but boy, they sure had no problems publishing Trump's his tax forms that must have been stolen illegally.
Yeah, Oh, that's the thing about Russian protesters. They're always ones, they always are able to get a lot of people's passport information and a lot of the information about where people live. Now, where people live, that's public in Russia, but passport information isn't. So that's one thing. That was a big thing a few years ago about the protesters. They had basically, they made this big argument about these people had these passports and these registrations, and it didn't work out. But anyways, that's a different topic. So you're saying the future is going to be very dark. So it's going to look like basically, is it going to make then the internet become in America, very childish? Because I think that's sort of the direction things are going, where all things that are serious or sort of bigger ideas are gone. Like girls in bikinis, something like playing video games, basically stuff that's sort of, fluff material. Is that going to be really the only thing that's going to be allowed, or what?
Well, if it's a serious liberal idea, it'll be allowed. But if it's a serious conservative idea, it's not going to be.
Yes.
So, if you want to promote like a serious agenda like gay marriage or pro-abortion or anything like this, you're going to be allowed to under the new internet laws. But if you're anti gay marriage, or if you are against abortion, it's going to be censored off. I know this. I just got off a 3-day ban because I went onto the Airbnb website. Yeah. And they were, I got an advertisement like, come stay here for feminist studies. And on Airbnb. And I took a screenshot of it, And I said, the last thing I want to do when I stay at an Airbnb is to take some garbage feminist studies course. They banned me for 3 days.
On what platform? Facebook?
Facebook.
Okay.
For hate speech.
All right. Yep.
So,
and also it's important to note that it's not a human being that's overseeing this. This is an algorithm. This is something that sort of felt triggered by the words to react.
No,
this
was a human being, and I'm going to tell you why.
A human being,
absolutely, because I posted it 4 months ago.
Yeah.
So it must have been somebody digging through my Facebook feed.
To go back in time.
Yeah.
And bust you for something.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've gotten a few artificial claims of my own over the years, I guess. So that's not a very good prognosis. But let's talk about then Russia, because I think there's sort of two things that could happen. Russia could in some ways become this weird, I think at the moment it's becoming this weird champion of freedom, the home for conservative American dissidents online. But also, if the West really wants to lock it down, we could start to see the world divide into different internets that are completely separate from each other. Or do you think that's not possible with the way the internet's organized and the realities of the 21st century?
I think that would be hard, but there's a third option that you're forgetting. Look, people usually look to America for free speech. And if they see that America can clamp down on free speech, then what's to stop any other government saying, America's doing it. We're going to do it too.
Yeah.
So I think America is really setting a very dangerous precedent for the rest of the world in this. But I tend to agree with your first assessment.
Option. Yeah.
In that Russia is strangely becoming the champion of free speech. When I got here 5 years ago, the first thing I did, I set my website back up. I had to buy a new domain name.
Because it was taken.
It's hosted here, and nobody can do anything about it now. And Russian government's never come and said, we had complaints from the FBI, because the FBI, they did complain about it, by the way, to the Russian government.
Oh, really? Yeah. Wow, man, they are sure on your case.
Yeah, they don't like me. Yeah, wow. but the FBI liaison went to the FSB liaison complaining about my website and about that I'm this criminal. You should give him back to us.
But sort of the context of that is, so the FSB actually was like, nah, he can do it. They took your side.
Yeah, from what I understand, from what I understand, they slid the file over to the FSB guy. The FSB guy just slid the file right back. Said, it's none of our business. Wow.
Well, hopefully that policy won't change, because then we'll have freedom in Russia and the freedom to believe in conservative things. So, for now.
So when I put my website back up, one of the first comments was really amazing.
Yeah.
And you can actually, it's still on my website. It's and the comment was something to the effect of, it's amazing, John, that to get freedom of speech in America, you had to go to Russia.
Yeah, everything's backwards.
It's bizarre.
Well, they say Russia's backwards, but America's gone down a very dark road, so things are getting brighter here.
Yeah.
John Dugan, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
So anyways, guys, that was our big discussion on censorship with John Dugan. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're watching this is probably the end of the long-form interview, which I appreciate you sticking here till the end. And don't worry, somehow we'll survive censorship, and we'll be with you next week.